Hello, welcome to the Lim Simple Business Academy. This is Ezekiel again. This is module 2.1. I decided to break the second module into two because this is typically an activity, and hopefully when you're done with this activity, so you hear a little bit in the background. I'm actually recording this out here in Paris, France. So I'm having to do this as some form of a restaurant. Because my wife and my son are in the hotel. So you hear a little bit of cars passing, people opening the door and closing. But I'll try as much as possible to make sure that you can hear me. Okay, so this class is really an activity. So just before we start, I'd like you to go get a pen, get a paper. You can pause this and go get a pen, go get a paper, go get something to write with, because it's typically a writing class. Get a calculator. It's a calculating class. This class is really going to change, and like I like to say, going to reset our brains. Because it's going to enable you, perhaps more than ever before, realize what is at stake and understand why I usually tell people, when you have a job and you intend to start a business, the first thing you need to do is to not quit your job. Do not quit your job to start a business. Quit your job to grow a business. And the reason is because of the expenses that we have, right? So I just run you through this. So today, my topic is what is stopping you. And I don't mean this in some motivational kind of way, to be able to spur you on, to be able to get out and do all the things you want to do in the world. I'm actually being very practical here, talking about exactly what is stopping you. And I'm going to show you what is stopping you. And your job would be, it's going to perhaps worry you at some point. It's going to probably depress you at some point. But if you're really ready to work, it'll energize you and it'll get you to get out there and do what you need to do, right? So what is stopping you? But before I get there, I just want to reiterate, for those of us who watched the video pre the training, the Employee to Entrepreneur Transition course, the first video that I posted before you got in the group, I talked a little bit about this. I talked about what people want. Some people want financial freedom. Some people want to contribute to society. Some people want peace of mind. They want to build assets. They want good health. They want retirement style. They want, good quality education. I'm not going to explain all of those details here. If you haven't watched that video, you need to get back and see that video where I explained in details, particularly the area when I talked about retirement and talked about how that, even though a lot of us think that we're on track, we're not exactly on track. But that's not the purpose of today's video, so we'll leave that for now, right? So if you need to get more details on that, get back on that video and then rewatch it so that you understand how I explained all of these factors and how all these factors affect our desire to want to do more, be more, have more, or achieve more, right? Okay, so but the real question is that if you do have all of these great ideas, all of these great things that you want to be, one of the things that stops responsible people like you are bills. Because as you grow older, what happens that you start to become responsible, right? You have bills to pay, you have things that show up, you get married, you have kids, you have school fees, you have all of those things, But my concern for a lot of us, and I figured this out, I found out myself, and it was shocking when I did find out for myself. But my concern is that a lot of us do not understand how significant this is. We just sort of think it's a problem, but we don't know how much of a problem it is. We don't know we've not been able to put a figure to this. So what this class is going to do is to help you put a figure to that, right? So at this point, if you don't have your diary and your paper, please go and get one. And I want you to promise me that you would finish this class. I've done this class a lot. I've done this live in a lot of places, and if I have a room of 100 people, only about 20 people would finish this particular activity. So, but the thing is this: if you do finish this activity, if you actually do finish it, it'll change your life. It might scare you at the beginning, but it'll change your life. And the reason why it'll change your life is this: human beings always do what we must. We usually don't always do what we should, but we always do what we must. In fact, I read a book called The Million Next Door. One of the fantastic books I read. It says success would only happen if success was your only option. One of the reasons why a lot of us do not succeed is because we have options. We have things that we have different versions of it, right? It's like, having a plan A and a plan B. And I think that that's nonsense. I think you only need to have a plan A. And, if it doesn't work out the way you have, the way you have itemized it, then you figure out another plan A, right? So because sometimes if you have an option, if you have another way to take, you would always take that way. If it's there to be taken, it'll always be taken. If it's available to be taken, it'll always be taken, right? So please get your pen and paper. Let me know that I believe that you've gotten your pen and paper at this time. Okay. So what I want to do is to help you understand something that I call your financial magic number. It's, in my opinion, your magic number, the number of your expense at the time, right? Because sometimes we talk about, playing down our expense, but I want to be able to show you what's the smallest possible expense that you actually spend money on. So what I'm going to take you through is a journey of how you spend your money, right? I know that I'm not in your pocket, but I can predict, right? So I'm going to be calling a couple of things, and I'm going to be explaining them, and your job is to write those things out and actually write the numbers. At the end of the day, because the reason why a lot of us don't understand how this works is because our bills show up differently. Sometimes our bills show up monthly, sometimes they show up yearly, sometimes they show up daily. Right, but what I want to do is to help you harmonize all of your bills into some form of a monthly figure so that you understand exactly what's due every single month. It's called your financial magic number, right? And this is typically all that it entails. We have, my team and I have been able to distill every single thing that we think people spend money on, down to just about this 11 factors, right? For most people, it's a little more, but this is the barest minimum. So it's rent, transportation, utilities, feeding costs, groceries, school fees, personal expense, childcare expense, communication, that's airtime and data, giving, and then the other expenses. So I would explain every single one of these factors. So here's what I want you to do. When I call a figure, when I call a factor, I want you to write it out. So when I say rent, I want you to write it out. And then when I explain how you're going to put the figure to it, and then you actually write the figure. Please don't put it in your head, write it down. Trust me, it's going to do you a lot of good to do that, right? So let's go to the first one. The first one is rent. Most of us pay rent. If you don't pay rent, that's beautiful. But if you do pay rent, whether it's you that pays it or your husband that pays it, now you could also do this if you run a business. You could do this for your business, but the focus of this is for your personal. When we run the business mastery class that should start in 3 weeks or so, then I would show you one for your business. But let's just run this, right? So most of the time, our rent is usually annual, right? So what I need you to do is to divide that annual figure by 12 and write down that figure. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to write rent dash, take whatever your annual figure is, divide it by 12, and then you write down the monthly figure. So for example, if your rent is 1 million naira, you divide it by 12, that would give you about 83,000 plus. Write that 83,000 naira down. Right? Have you done that? I believe you have. So let's move to the next one. Transportation. Now, most of us here, some of us here would have cars. So if you do have a car, typically you would fuel it once a week, thereabout. So what is that figure? Multiply that figure by 4 and then write it out, right? If you don't have a car, then how much do you spend if you If you take the bus, how much is the bus on a daily basis? Then you multiply that by 30. If you take taxis like Uber and the likes, just estimate what your budget is in a day and then scale it up to a month. If you do a combination of both, the idea is to just typically do an estimate and find out exactly what works for you, right? So that's for transportation. So remember, if you have a car, you don't have a car, whatever the case is, it's important for you to be able to find a way to scale it up to a month, right? Okay. But again, the key here is to actually write it down. So I assume that you've written rent, I assume that you've written transportation, and then you've put all those figures down. You've actually put all those figures down. Please don't write it in your head. Put it down to paper and write it. We're still going to calculate at the end of the day, right? Next, we're looking at utilities. So under utilities, I want you to write utilities, and underneath, I want you to write all of these factors. Light bill. So for example, how much is your light bill in a month, right? Write the actual figure as against light bill. So you write light bill and you write the actual figure. Now, some of us live in gated estates, and sometimes we pay some sort of dues for it. So write estate dues and write that amount for it, right? Some of us, most of us, have some form of cable TV, whether it's DSTV, Gold TV, Strong TV, Soft TV, Netflix, something. Amazon Prime, Disney that is about to come out, whatever it is, just write down what it costs you every single month. Most of us here have some form of gas bill. Gas bill is gas for your cooking. If you don't use electric, then use gas. Write down what it costs you every month. If you buy it every other month, then you divide it. The idea is to get what it costs every month, right? So do not write it in your head. Please write it out. Actually write it out, guys. Write it out, ladies. Write it out, right? It's at this point that I start to do some people. Please write it out, right? Okay, and then any other utilities that you pay for, whatever it is that you think I haven't covered, write it out. That happens in your family, right? So the next is feeding cost. A lot of us here, particularly a lot of us here that have jobs, you probably work somewhere that is not in your house. So you sort of eat, and so you have somebody somewhere that you buy food from every day. Sometimes the budget is as small as 500, sometimes it's as high as 1,000, but whatever that budget is multiplied by 25. There's averagely about 25 working days in a month. So I assume that if you spend about 500 naira buying food once a day, I assume that would be about 12,500 in a month. And if you do more, just multiply by 25. Note that every single time I'm only focusing on exactly how the amount of money you spend. Now, most of us spend this money, whether we have it or not. Sometimes if we don't have it, we borrow it, we loan it, we find it from our cards, we get a credit card, we do something, right? But we actually spend this money. So please write it down. Write feeding cost and write a figure. Please write a figure. Don't let me lose you here. Write a figure, right? Okay, I assume that you've done that. Next is groceries. If you buy things for the house, and the like. So how much does it cost? You buy food stuff. If you buy weekly, scale it up to a month. You spend maybe 15,000 a week. That's about 60,000 a month. If you spend 5,000 a week, that's about 20,000 a month. Groceries, diapers, toiletries. Just sort of put a budget that you think is healthy, something that you can see yourself spending. Or you think you've spent over a period of time, and then just write it out, right? Okay, if you're a lady, this might be hard. This might be easier than the guys. If you're a guy, if you're not a bachelor, you hand it over to your wife, or you're not involved in it. So just write something that you probably hand over to your wife if you do that for that purpose, right? Now, so school fees. This is one of the big ones, right? This is one of the ones that shows up at some pressure point. Now, if you have children that are not yet in the university, chances are that you pay school fees sort of 3 times in a year, right? So what I want you to do now is to take those 3 terms. I'm talking term 1, 2, and 3, you add them together. When you do add them, that would give you some form of like a yearly fee, and then divide that yearly fee by 12. Remember, what we're really looking for is what's due every single month, right? Because you sort of earn your money every month, isn't it? So it's important to know what's due every month. So add term 1, term 2, term 3, and then you put it all together. That gives you annual school fees, and then you divide that by 12, and that gives you monthly, right? And then you do that for all of your children, because schools don't really do buy one get one free yet, do they? Right? So it's important that you do that. And that's how to calculate school fees. And please write it down. At this point, I would have lost a good number of you, but if you're still here, you're one of the focused ones. You're one of the ones that is high marked for success. So please continue, right? Personal expense. Personal expense is sort of how much you spend on yourself. Sometimes it's a little easy, sometimes it's hard, but we sort of have some recurring expenditures. If you're a lady, your hair due, manicure, pedicure, if you're one of those that would always find a reason to party with some people at some weekends, 1 or 2 weekends a month, and then you have ashwabis. If you're a guy and you're giving to gadgets, and you occasionally take the guys out once a month, just think through and then find some, think about what's recurrent in terms of your personal expense. I'm not looking for special buys now, just personal expense stuff, just routine stuff, whether it's your hairdo, your what they call it, barber cost, whatever it is, so just write it out. But the key here again is to actually write out what you think would accrue in that for a month, right? Good. So childcare expense is expenses on your children that isn't school fees. This could be pocket money, diapers if your children are still very young. Just occasional stuff, right? So just think through. This is also a gray area. So think through, put down a budget that you think is reasonable, and then write it out, right? Okay, so please, the key again here is to actually write it out, not to think about it, not to fantasize about it, not to wish you wrote it, not to write it in your head, but please write it out. Very, very important, right? Okay, communication, airtime, data. Some people get crazy here. They'll be like, oh, I spend a lot of money. Well, most of us don't spend up to $1 million now on airtime in a month, is it? So write down what you spend, and write down what you spend in data. Some of us here have multiple data plans. We have some form of data plans for our houses, some for our mobile devices. So whatever that is for you, please add it up together. And airtime, some of us buy airtime monthly. Few of us buy airtime monthly. A lot of us buy it as it comes. Just sort of think about the last 30 days and, estimate how much you think you would have spent. And if it seems like something that reoccurs every time, please write it out. Very, very important. And again, the key here is to write it out, right? And then giving, tithes, offerings, giving to parents, occasional giving to charities. Do an estimate, your tithes, for those of us who do pay them, is 10%. Your offering is sort of like as the Spirit leads, but I usually joke that most of us, if we check the last 6 months, the Spirit has been leading us the same way. We haven't changed what we give, so it's easy to note. And we sort of, I'm not talking about when a surprise emergency shows. I'm just talking about, routine, when you get your income, what you usually take out, the giving and all those things that you take out. All right, so write down something that seems like a healthy budget. Again, on that giving, you put tithe, the offering, giving to parents. Just write out everything and put a number to them so that you can see. Don't just lump them together, write them out so that you can see. Your list should be getting really full now, but we're almost done. Then lastly is other expense. Now, other expense is, whatever you think that I haven't covered. Some of us here have house help. I didn't put that in there because not everybody, can afford a house help. Some of us here have drivers. If you do, please write down what you pay that driver a month. Hospital bills, if you have a recurrent medical condition that you're constantly spending money for yourself or any member of your family, that would be. And then also maybe a little budget for emergencies, for if something just pops up, right? So whatever you think, haven't been covered yet in this activity, I try to keep this list, like I said, to something that, everybody can do. But for a number of us, we might need to expand it a little bit. So this other expense is sort of like your column, right? So when you put all that together, what I need you to do now is to sum it up. So you might have to pause this and actually pick out a calculator and actually sum it up, right? Just sum it up, write up every single thing, put all the costs together. Remember, all the costs that we have should be monthly, right? We shouldn't have anything yearly, daily, or weekly. Every single thing should be monthly. Remember, we scale down the rent to monthly. We scale up the transportation, airtime, or data to monthly too, right? So please just add everything up together right now. Add it up. If you have to pause so that you can do it well, please pause this program right now and then do it. I'll just wait a few seconds. I'm believing that you've paused right now. If you haven't, please pause it and get back, right? Okay, so let's assume that you've done that and you've written it down, you've added it up, and you're staring a figure right in front of you. And it's shocking, right? For most of us, this will be shocking. Most of us have not seen our expenses this way before. And it's important that you do this because once you do this, you realize what is at stake. You realize what must happen. And like I said, humans, we don't always do what we should, but we always do what we must, right? So the hard truth is that number is standing between you and your best life. That number is the reason why you cannot quit your job. That number is the reason why you will not quit your job. And if you don't figure out how to set up a business, grow something that can produce that number for you or more, it'll be very, very difficult for you to make a decision with regards to entrepreneurship, right? Fortunately, this course would help you get in the right path to be able to make sure that you can, pull that off, right? So my question, and this is the question we're going to deal with on the group, is that how has this activity on your financial magic number changed your urgency to do something about your finances, right? So I want you to get back on the group and give feedback right out how this has created urgency. Let me know how you felt. If you didn't complete this, please go back, rewatch it, complete it. Let me know how it felt to have done this activity. Let me know what emotions are running through your mind right now, and let me know exactly what kind of urgency it creates for you to be able to do something drastic about your finances, right? So we'll take that conversation up today, tomorrow, and next. And then you would get the second part of where we start to talk about the skills you have to learn if you're going to build a business, right? Okay, have a fantastic day. Thanks a lot this was quite a long one, but it was important that we did this. So have a fantastic day. See you in class. Right, bye-bye.